Tonight, Japan earthquake 7.3 occurs on the eastern coast, with the latest tonight. And the aftermath of Cyclone Gombe when it affected Mozambique and Eastern Africa. Here we are once again in the studio, and it's great to be back on another WeatherBeat. My name is Nathan Foy, and we've had quite a few weather stories and elsewhere other stories that have happened, not just in the last week or 2 weeks since our last WeatherBeat, but in the last 24 hours. Our main topic of discussion, and what we'll be leading on tonight, will be the earthquake that occurred off the eastern coast, not too far from Sendai, a rather similar location to the historic Tohoku earthquake that occurred almost to the day, 5 days behind us in 2011. That would be 11 years ago, at 9.1. This one was a magnitude 7.3, first marked up as a 7.5, as you saw on that image at the beginning there, and has caused, severe shaking, clearly, and perhaps a few more things that we'll get onto a little bit later. But we are also discussing many other things, such as flooding impacts across the world, and also cyclonic storms, of course, Gombe and its aftermath in southern Africa, and also what could be brewing in the next week in the North Indian Ocean particularly. And I have a team who will be talking all about those things tonight. Some of them will be talking about different things to others, but they're all in the room with us right now. We've got Ethan, whose head has been chopped off by my face there, so I'll just turn myself off. There he is. He'll be talking storms a little bit later on. We've also got Farhan there. We have Faiz, and also we had someone else as well, but they've gone for the moment, so we'll see whether they come back. But anyway, there is everyone. But first, Farhan, you're our ever-reliable correspondent on this show, it seems. What did you think when you first saw the earthquake that occurred? Were you awake to see that?
It was 10 p.m. so it was close to my bedtime, but I did saw it, and at first I didn't think much of it because a 7.3 is in terms of strong earthquakes that Japan is concerned is medium size, but when the videos and the reports started to come, it started to become apparent that it's much more than a medium earthquake, because some people have said that it actually is, to them, it's actually the strongest shaking they have felt since 3/11, since 10 years ago. So it does have a certain amount of serious factor to it. And of course, there was a tsunami warning that was issued for 1 meter, 1 meter tsunami. It didn't end up being 1 meter when I did check, but it was still detected. Of course, because it was weak, it's not exactly going to have impact for Pacific wide like the West Coast United States and Hawaii, but it did happen. It's quite a remarkable event to come right out of the blue, or just a few hours ago.
Right. This is the USGS shake map that was issued with this earthquake. They've been doing shake maps for a very long time, and that's what the legend says at the bottom there. So some of those areas were entering stage 6, maybe stage 7. I think actually at the center of it would have been stage 9. 7/8 is, I think, what was felt on land there, and you can see those colours. It's quite hard to correspond them, but you can see quite clearly the areas that were most affected by the earthquake. So just south of Sendai there was the area, a very similar place to that historic earthquake, and also another 7, I think a 7.1 earthquake that occurred very close to here last year as well.
Yes.
So Farhan, you've got some videos there as well of what occurred on of course, ashore in Japan, there was a lot, I would gather, of power outages. Whether infrastructure has been damaged, we're not sure. There was a train derailment, but I believe that was didn't cause any injuries.
Yes, the highlight being, of course, a power cut, a major power cut. Up to 2 million people lost power in the beat after the earthquake. There are some, mm, I'm not sure if you can call this more minor or moderate structural damage. Here in Natori City Station in Miyagi Prefecture, a glass case has been broken, a bit of glass. In Fukushima, just outside of Fukushima Station, the station hotel have some bits of it falling off. If Twitter will load here just a moment. But some bits pieces of the buildings comes up. It's not serious enough that it's in danger of falling down, but as you can see here very shortly, it will show. It will show here.
If anyone would like to consider becoming an Ultimate fan, you might be able to help Farhan's internet signal. But there we go.
There it is. But the video is not running, but you could. Here we go. There is some bits pieces on the ground. And last but not least, as we wait for Twitter again, is the train derailment, which is the Tohoku Hokkaido Shinkansen, the midnight train.
And where exactly was the derailment?
A derailment is
was it?
It is between Fukushima and a place called.
So I imagine it was very close to the. I imagine it was close to where the worst part of the earthquake was.
Okay, Google Translate help me here. It's between Fukushima and Shiroishi City. Here it is.
So that's how it was there, and looks like it's on an elevated section there. So I imagine it could have been worse. Yeah.
Yeah, only one cut ended up derailing, and there is some damage to the support structure. I'm not sure what you call this, a viaduct in train terms, but yeah, there's some damage there to the barrier, and the pantograph has been knocked over. But according to the latest news here, it's only structural damage. There's no injuries or fatalities. I mean, I can't really imagine there is many people traveling on train at midnight.
Yeah, not many.
But yeah, it's pretty major news because, of course, in terms of public transport safety, Japan is pretty much the world leader. There hasn't been very many train accident in Japan in the last 30 or so years, and in fact, I believe this is the first case of derailment of the Shinkansen.
Really?
In the 2010s. Since the
I think
2010s,
this may be the second time. Sorry. I think this may be the second time since the last year we have 6.1 offshore on Chiba, or maybe very close to Chiba. Also on Shindo 5 or maybe Shindo 6 scale, and it's also caused a derailment too.
Okay.
There's lots of people being injured that time.
So this was the earthquake. Just to remind everyone of when it was, because I think some people might only just be learning about this. Even this occurred at about, I think it was 11:30 p.m. local time last night. Of course, now it's in the early morning hours there. So I'm trying to figure out what time that was exactly. Because I was there when it happened, but I can't remember what time it was. I think it must have been about 1 or 2 p.m. UTC.
I think it was around 14 to maybe 15 UTC, if I remember correctly.
So around 8 or 9 hours ago, is when this earthquake occurred, and that is our main story on WeatherBeat tonight. If anyone has any information, if you're on the ground in Japan or have any news for us during our WeatherBeat live stream tonight, please let us know. And you can ask questions during our discussion by sending a message through our YouTube chat. Just to type in Force 13 all in text and it will light up. I was just a little bit distracted there because I saw Ethan's little head popping up behind his screen, which was quite amusing. But certainly one of the largest earthquakes to occur in the Japanese region since 2011. So certainly a significant impact there. He's really distracting me. Regarding the tsunami, though, they were talking about maybe, I think they were talking about 1 meter being felt or going onshore. I've not heard anything about actual tsunami that actually occurred, but they were warning of that, Farhan.
Yes,
Actually, I have I have some information for the tsunami. So last night, the tsunami was recorded around 20 centimeters in Ishinomiyaki. But I think that's all. I think that's only 20 centimeters in Ishinomiyaki.
So a 20 centimeter tsunami apparently occurred from this. And once again, there is the time actually, the timestamp 2:36 p.m. UTC. A 7.3 earthquake with a depth of 63 kilometers. I think people were saying earlier that it was much shallower than that, but apparently that's what USGS were going with. And just to go off a few places there, certainly moderate shaking would have been felt in Koriyama, Iwaki, Kitakami, all along the east coast. Interesting pattern of how it was felt there. I'm sure it would have been possibly felt in Tokyo as well, along the east coast of Honshu. Some questions that have just come in. Do we have a space channel? We actually do have a space channel, although it doesn't get much use, unfortunately. I may as well plug it. If you would be interested in joining the space channel, as my face gets moved to the bottom right of the screen so Ethan's head doesn't get chopped off. We obviously have the channel, but we have not very many people who are interested in that particularly to make a team out of it. But who knows, if a few people band together, we might be able to do more with a space channel. Of course, we have our earthquake channel, which is on Force 13 earthquakes, and that was it has a 24/7 earthquake tracker, and that was covering it very well earlier today. We were considering actually whether to go live for a time, but we figured that it was getting late in the night, and it would only have been a short window to go live, and we'd already missed it by the time we got to the decision making. But there we have it. Also, another comment there. Actually, a few comments. Do ping us. Is this the strongest earthquake of the season this year? I mean, there aren't earthquake seasons, but they just go on yearly cycles, I guess. This year, we've not had many strong earthquakes this year. Is this the first Mag 7, actually?
Yes.
It is.
For around 70 years. Since 28 December, Bandasi earthquake in Indonesia and Asia.
The first magnitude 7
yes.
since December?
Yes.
So there we go. That
Of
is
course.
Farhan?
It's pretty long.
Of course, in terms of damaging earthquakes, this is the first time. This is not the first time in this year. 2 weeks ago, we covered the Pasaman earthquake 6.2, which actually has been a bit updated. That toll from that, it was 14 when I give the news on that 2 weeks ago. It's now about 20, and damage has been updated to be in the upper end of the scale in terms of Indonesian earthquake. But yeah, that's how it is.
And wasn't there another one near you this week?
Oh yes,
Yeah, there has been a few magnitude 5, magnitude 6, but it is felt in Banten and Jakarta. Well, I mean West Java, which borders the region of West Java, which borders Central Java, and we didn't felt that much at all. So it's more people in Jakarta and Banten that felt those earthquakes.
And there are also a
yes,
few earthquakes. Sorry, Faiz, did you want to add on to that?
yes. Actually, before this Japan 7.3, 7.3 to 7.5, we actually have also an interesting quake, which is also quite concerning. Actually, we have 6.4 on nearby on offshore Luzon, Philippines, and by 4 minutes later, we got a 6.7 in near the coast of Sumatra. But
That's
luckily,
right, yeah.
yes, from 2 maybe 3 days ago, I
Yeah,
think.
so two earthquakes
But at least
occurring
damage was very limited.
like a couple of thousand
Yes,
miles
very
away at,
simultaneously.
at the same
Yes,
time.
like back to back. Mm.
Now, has the scientific community established any um, link between earthquakes that occur very close together in terms of time, or is this just a coincidence, guys?
I think this is just a coincidence, but the two are actually posing a very serious threat, actually, since both can pose a ma- major, major earthquake in the future, but we just don't know when. For the Luzon earthquake, it was hypothesized on some articles. It's possible to have earthquake as high as magnitude 8 plus, or even maybe
Yes.
9 in on certain articles. And also for
Well,
the
you say that, Vanish, but in terms of possibilities, it's really wide. Like for example, back in 2020, there was a research paper that was released talking about how it is possible for the southern section of the Sunda megatrust, south of Java, is capable of
yes,
9.1, 9.2 earthquake. That is a possibility, but whether or not it could happen, that's another question. And I think that's something that has to be kept in mind is that what is
yes,
possible should not be taken as something that will happen. A possibility
yes,
is just a possibility. If it happens
yes.
or not, that's not a certainty.
Okay, so yeah, but it's just as far as it's just a possibility for the maybe worst case scenario.
And I know you touched on the Philippine earthquake as well. That did occur in the last few days too. From what I gather, it was felt widely, but I don't think there was much damage. Is that right?
Yes, from the search of people, it says on the intensity of 4, which is maybe not very strong earthquake, but it will be, but people maybe felt it very uh, more like moderate one, maybe,
Okay.
but not a damaging one.
Let me respond to some comments. Thanks very much for your insight, guys. Um, a comment here from EMC Mitten Kid. Interesting name. Do a radar assisted season of 2017 like we did with the 1997 West Pacific season. Satellite overlay we had on that one actually. I mean, we could. If there's call for it, then maybe we could. I'm sure our animation team will be listening and taking notes. And another question, would Mount Fuji erupt in the near future? I believe the last time it erupted was in the early 1700s. I don't know much about this. Does Farhan know?
Well, after 311, the Mount Fuji didn't erupt now, doesn't it? If a 9.0 didn't trigger a volcanic eruption, which I don't think a 7.3 will. And
Well,
also,
they're saying the near
uh,
future. They could be talking about 100 years for all we know.
Well,
Yes.
it has been quite a long time since Fuji erupted in general, so I guess in that sense, yes. However, uh, one, whether or not an earthquake of any capacity will trigger, we do not know. And two, and I like to make this clear, if Mount Fuji erupt, Tokyo will not be wiped out, because that's an idea that's been floating around by sensational media, but that's just not true. Mount Fuji, although visible from Tokyo, is not close enough to be within destructive range. It will get a bit of ash, it would get a bit of damage, however, it wouldn't get to the point where it would be like, I don't know, what's that town again that was wiped out by Navarro del Ruiz back in 1985? Amaro. It wouldn't be like Amaro, which was completely wiped out by a volcanic eruption. It wouldn't be like that.
Okay, and another question there about how many active volcanoes are there in Japan? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if you guys have an idea. I imagine it's quite a few.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot, yes.
Probably 40 to 50 active volcanoes in Japan, I think, if I remember correctly.
And some tropical questions there, which we'll get onto in the second half of WeatherBeat tonight. And just a little question there: is the Super Cyclone Challenge still delayed? No, it is here, definitely. This Saturday evening, we will have the Super Cyclone Challenge doubles on tap. So a doubles series on the way. If you don't know what that is, then stay tuned Saturday night. You'll find out our game show. All right, let's move on to our next topic, which I think comes after this segue, which I've no idea how the planning of this show is anymore. So we'll just press a button or two and we'll just figure out where it ends up. But thanks very much to Farhan and Faiz for chatting to us about that. Oh, that was it. You see, I knew I had no idea what I was doing. And there we go. That was WeatherBeat. On to our next topic, which is, which I think we're going to talk about. What order were we going? I think we're going to go straight to Cyclone Gombe. So obviously that storm affected the Mozambique region and also Madagascar. Farhan laughing away there. These areas of southern Africa and eastern Africa have been affected so drastically by numerous storms in the last few weeks. Ethan
I
over there.
apologize, but Ethan is struggling with Mitchell. I can't hold back a laugh. He is
Me neither.
struggling with Mitchell. I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, Ethan can
Yeah,
come
I'm
in now
sorry.
and talk about Cyclone Gombe if you want. Now, several of us were tracking it. We were looking at model runs for quite a while. It was dithering a little bit when it first moved over Madagascar. The biggest question was how much will it intensify? And in the end, some models said it might get to mid-range category 4. In the end, it managed to get to, I think, did it just make it to category 3?
It ended up just barely making it into the category 3 range, but if I had a best guess, it might have attained 120 miles per hour just prior to landfall, but either way, this was, just to see this thing go from a tropical storm to, when this thing emerged off of Madagascar, we were thinking, this thing is going to rapidly intensify, and even like a day later, it still wasn't rapidly intensifying. So then
Yes.
the forecast started to go down a little bit. I remember I downgraded my forecast to a low end category 2. Obviously, that didn't verify, but
Well, it struggled for a time, didn't it? I'm trying to remember what actually happened to it. Was it struggling to get its structure together, or was it dry air or wind shear?
I think it was probably dry air because I'll pull up the satellite imagery here, and I'll just pull up my screen share actually, and you can see here once the system emerged off of Madagascar, it had a healthy circulation to it. It looked decent. It didn't look horrible, but as you can see, as it started to develop that inner core right there, it really was dominated by this band here on the western side. That was massive, and that band maintained itself for quite a long time. And you can see still that band's still there, but once that band sort of died off, the storm could really breathe more, and then it started to intensify more, and there it goes, rapidly intensifying. So it's not uncommon to see storms like this that'll we expect them to rapidly intensify, they'll hold off for a little bit, and then they'll start to get organized, and then they'll rapidly intensify. I know that Cyclone Kenneth really comes to mind in terms of this location, not to the intensity peak, but of course, how it rapidly intensified in the same area, which was actually just north of here, actually. But certainly that is a notable analog, but that's really about it when it comes to Gombe. I mean, you can see here, it really died off over Mozambique. And models, I remember, Nathan...
Well, it didn't that much. It was still going for a time. And actually, it's still traceable now.
Yeah. I mean, this thing it's still... It might even be a tropical cyclone. I mean, it might even regain tropical cyclone status off the coast here, but it stalled and dropped even more heavy rainfall. I mean, why not give Mozambique more heavy rainfall? Why not?
From what I've seen on some reports, and we'll get to those reports shortly, we'll probably run over time on this subject, but I guess there's quite a bit to cover. The amount of area that was flooded in some areas near the coast, nearly half of all the land going inwards about 20-30 kilometers was flooded. So massive flooding issues there, and we'll get onto the numbers in a moment. Like I said, just wanted to touch on how the eye just managed to appear shortly before the landfall.
Yeah, I mean, microwave passes at this time. You can see here satellite imagery showing pretty rapidly intensifying storm. And lots of people comparing this to Hurricane Grace from last year in the Atlantic when it comes to its structure. I probably wouldn't compare it to that directly. I'd probably be more likely to compare this probably to Typhoon Hato from 2017 as a more structurally sound storm, I guess you could say. But you can see there, it really got its eye out. I mean, just in like a matter of hours, this is what we always see with these storms that are rapidly intensifying. We have like this curve that goes up, but once that eye emerges, that curve gets even steeper. And I think that that last second eye trying to pop out really helped the storm intensify up to Category 3 status.
What was that? So in terms of the statistics and the information regarding everything that went on there, apparently information latest is that just over 400,000 people were affected by this storm. Not to mention, it's one of many that have occurred in the area. It's one that's severely affected Mozambique. I imagine Malawi was significantly affected as well, an area that was in serious issues during Cyclone Idai in 2019. But the information we have right now, 82 injured and 20 killed. Infrastructure damages, 301 schools, 691 classrooms and 16 health centres. Obviously there's a big humanitarian focus in this area all the time. They're usually in Mozambique either getting flooding or drought, it seems. There never seems to be a middle. But quite often flooding comes in waves, in seasons, and this is really one of the very bad seasons as far as flooding is concerned in the entire region. Just seeing if there's any more information I
would like to note something, Nathan, real quick.
Yeah.
I know that we just talked about this before, but we've actually just had another big earthquake, actually.
Oh, really? What's this?
Magnitude 6.0 in Iran.
Yes, I did see someone post that in the chat. So a magnitude 6. For the latest earthquake information, we've got our earthquake stream. I know that Sam, you've just joined us, so maybe we'll just switch gears again for a minute and just get your take on what happened in Japan and some aftershocks there as well.
Sure. Well, in Japan, there are just earthquakes on the same subduction zone as Tohoku in 2011, and This one was really close to land. It was a little deeper than 2011, which means that it's closer to land because the deeper it is, the further the subducted slab is from the trench, which is, in this case, closer to land. So the 7.3 was actually the closest to land out of all of the related earthquakes in that time span. And I've heard that there's at least 3 dead. I don't have a source for that, so take my word with a grain of salt. But it is a really bad earthquake.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Just wanting to get back to the Cyclone Gombe. Here's some pictures. That's not a very good image, but you can quite clearly see some of the flooding extent. There's an aerial shot here showing, this was in our intro, some of the communities that have been affected by the storm. And whilst we look at that, just want to go through some locations for those who are familiar with the regions. Out of 77,000 families who've had their houses completely or partially destroyed, these totals vary amongst each area, and I can share these numbers. 44,000 located across Manapo, 7,000 in the district of Ilha de Moch. I believe that's the island of Mozambique, which was very close to the storm, which made the landfall zone. 1411 in Murapula, 684 in Rapali, 675 in Ribaue, 458 in Memba, 407 in Angoche, and 17 in Mogovolas in the province of Nampula alone. 970 located across Quelimane, which is also along the coast and was in a possible area of concern. 701 in the district of Malumbo, 660 in Maganja da Costa, 545 in Nicodala, 168 in Alto Moluku, 167 in Gile, 89 in Milange, and 89 in Mokuba, 57 in Isle, 53 in Dere, 167 in Gile, 32 in Pibane, 14 in Inasunge, and 14 in Lugela in Zambezia. So lots and lots of areas that have been affected within Mozambique. Not heard much of Malawi within that there, but I imagine that they've had some. In fact, I have seen some pictures of flooding there, so I can certainly attest that that's the case. I think all the images that we're looking at here from exclusively from Mozambique, but I do believe there are some flooding shots in Malawi as well. So that's Cyclone Gombe. Let me just see if there's any other information. Not really, just as you'd expect, or maybe not, but to make clear that areas in Nampula province floodwaters are receding. So that is obviously good news, given that the remnants of the storm are still lingering in the area.
I should note, Nathan, that this storm actually didn't look that bad pre-Madagascar, too. We have to remember that this storm even had a brief life just as it made landfall in Madagascar. It didn't look that bad, actually. I mean,
it was named about 12 hours before it made landfall, so it was quite brief, but it did look quite good in that brief time period.
Yeah.
So obviously not a good situation in the wider scope of all of the cyclones that have affected this area so far. In fact, what we were going to do just before, in fact, no, we'll be doing that later. We'll be going to a short break now, and we take a look at the what's been going on in the wide world of weather in the last 2 weeks. This is Force 13 Live, WeatherBeat. More discussion coming up in a moment. Widespread heavy rainfall in various parts of Peru has led to flooding and landslides, with 3 dead so far and 7 missing. Many others have been affected. Colombia has also been impacted with similar issues, with 12 dead so far this month. And in the tropics, Cyclone Billy is out in the Indian Ocean and has recently turned post-tropical as it steers towards the south. And you can share with us the weather in your backyard by sending images, videos and updates to our Force 13 channels on Facebook, Twitter and our email address contact@force13.com. Welcome back to Force 13 Live. This is WeatherBeat, of course, delivering the latest information around the world of weather. Some things that you may not necessarily hear in your national news headlines, depending on where you are in the world. So let's move on, and one of the reasons why we've got two Indonesians joining us tonight, not just because of earthquake discussion, which they seem to be pretty good at themselves, better than me in Farhan's case, I think, but also about what's been going on over there, because we spoke last time about flooding concerns and issues, and there's been more of that, Farhan, hasn't there?
Yes, there has been, which is kind of funny because I just saw that yesterday, I guess, up there in the Philippines has declared the dry season, the end of the northeast monsoon up there in the Philippines, which is kind of funny because over here we're still getting frequent rainstorm and flooding. It's a bit of an interesting discrepancy of how one place is declaring a dry season while another place it's still very much the rainy season and quite severe one. This is a picture from Sigi, which is actually in Sulawesi. It's a pretty bad flood. You could see a road bridge there just collapse into the river. There is another picture from I believe this is Jember. Rescue official there trudging through knee-high water, and then also there are so many other area in Java that is flooded. One of them being the Regency of Kebumen, where 56 villages has been flooded. It is the worst ever since the 10th of the century, according to local officials. And as you can see, in the middle of all of this, people have to improvise ways to get on with their lives, such as making makeshift rafts out of pieces of bamboo.
How has this situation managed to materialize? Is it something that's been ongoing for a while? Has it been a really enhanced rainy season from the beginning?
Well,
there's also maybe some effects from 1970, which in turn become a tropical cyclone Gombe, in my opinion. And yesterday, a few hours ago, I checked on the BMKG daily precipitation map. There seems to be an extreme rainfall 2 days ago on Malang, which recorded around 159 millimeters of rain in the past 24 hours. I think that was 2 or maybe 3 days ago. But
Malang is in East Java, I should clarify.
Thank you for that. I was just going to ask.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and also in Kebumen said to be in Central Java said to be some severe rainfall in the past week, said by one of the news, one of the media.
And from what I was reading, I think was there 4 fatalities from this latest round of flooding?
No, there has been quite a few fatalities here and there. From some unfortunate cases, I heard of a case very close here in West Java, actually, of an elderly woman that was swept away by flooding in her home and was swept away until a dam. I forgot what dam it is. I just remember that she was found when she was stuck at a dam.
I see. Well, that doesn't sound like a good way to go. And looking ahead, is there more of this to come? I mean, you were talking about the end in sight, certainly in the Philippines, but not there. First of all, is it normal that you're further back than the Philippines in that regard, or and secondly, do you see the end in sight?
Well, usually here the rainy season runs from about November to April. So if you look at it from a time and date perspective, yeah, it is coming to a close in a short amount of time. However, it has been quite unpredictable in the last few years. For example, in 2020, we didn't get here in Java, we didn't get any significant rainfall until January. Uh, and then in 2021 and 2022, we've got quite significant amount of flooding and landslide almost since the very beginning of the season in the back end of 2020 and 2021. And so it used to be the case that we are going to end by this time of year, but with how unpredictable weather has become in the years that we are in a La Nina ever since 2020, whether or not the season is ending or not is a bit of a question mark. In fact, whether or not there's a distinct season at all is quite a question mark. Like, for example, here in West Java in 2021, we didn't really get a dry season because at least there is a big rainstorm every month, at least one. So we didn't exactly get extremely long periods of dryness. Now, of course, it is different in other parts of Indonesia, such as the Nusa Tenggara Islands, which is east of Bali, in which, in fact, in Nusa Tenggara Barat, in West Nusa Tenggara, they are holding a MotoGP race. That region is particularly well known for being extremely dry. So perhaps it's different there. But in terms of Java and Sumatra, it's really quite blurred whether or not it is the rainy season or the dry season.
Okay. Is there anything else you guys would like to add? Because we'll need to move on here.
Yeah, I think in 2020 was pretty bad, especially for during the very early time on 2020 on January 1st, if I recall. After not long after New Year in Jakarta, they received a very extreme amount of rainfall ranging from 200 to 300 millimeter of rain in span of maybe 2 to 3 hours, I think. And 2020, while in 2021, the rainfall was so spread out in that there's like almost everywhere it's flooding from Sumatra to Java, Borneo, Sulawesi, all the way to Papua. And now in 2022, there seems to be now a bit focused on somewhere like Java or some part on Sulawesi or some part in Papua.
All right. We'll have to cut it there. Thank you very much, guys, for that analysis on what's going on in Indonesia with severe or certainly serious flooding going on. Sounds quite widespread. Some questions that came in regarding all of our topics tonight. Why do some people insist on a link between sunspot activity and earthquakes? Is there a link? Sam, do you want to have a go at that?
I actually think that Faiz might be more well versed in that because I haven't really explored that.
Go ahead if you want.
Hey, so maybe this is interesting about earthquake. So we have been since several weeks of not having 7 and very amount of magnitude earthquake in January, then and also in February. But now last night we have our first 7, which also maybe the most strongest one, especially for Japan, since I heard that it may be even reach Cinder 6 plus maybe reach Cinder 7, since the last time I saw software named Jquake, it's actually like over the charts, over 1,000 girls or 1,000 square. So it's very interesting that actually we receive some very major earthquake actually in March. Yeah.
Okay.
You're cutting in and out there, but I think we got your point.
All right. I'm not sure whether that answered the question or not, but there we have it. Another comment there about will 2022 be above normal activity in the Atlantic and or Pacific regions? There's Ethan showing a face there. I don't know if that was in reaction to us or not. We did, yeah. Well, I think we're going to be in for more of the same.
Boy.
Yeah, that's a discussion for another day. Okay, well, shortly we'll be discussing what's to come in terms of the tropics in the very near future, because there are things on the way. So we'll be cutting to that in just a moment with the time we've got left, and an update on that latest earthquake. We'll get some information shortly. As well as the Force 13 main channel that covers mostly tropical activity, we also have our plethora now of regional channels. The Force 13 US channel, Force 13 UK and Ireland, Force 13 Europe, Force 13 Australia and Oceania, and Force 13 Philippines, all with dedicated teams to provide you with the latest updates for those areas. You can find all of our associated channels on the channels page on the Force 13 YouTube channel page. And we're back on WeatherBeat once again. So, upcoming, there are some concerning signs, particularly in the Bay of Bengal right now, where we could be getting a new tropical cyclone in the next few days. Models have been suggesting anything from landfall in the Andaman Islands and Myanmar, all the way round to the east coast of India. And I don't think anyone really knows what's going on so far. I spoke to one of the people on our partner channel, Bwat, earlier today in Bangladesh, and they don't think it's coming to them. They think it's going to eastern India as well. But many potential options on the table for this storm, and that's what we're discussing in this section, along with what's to come from the rest of the southern hemisphere season. So, who would like to go first on this section, guys?
I guess I will, because this Bay of Bengal system, dubbed Invest 91B, I think, was it yesterday or the day before, but either way, it was located very, very close to the equator. I think it was at 1 degree north, and was almost a borderline tropical depression. I mean, it looked really good. I don't have any imagery, unfortunately, to show this, but
I never saw it at 1 degree north. I saw it at 3, I think.
Either way, it was very, very close to the equator. It was almost a tropical depression, so one thing notable about the system already.
Well, what do you think of its future?
I will say, it does have a very uncertain future. I think that much is what I can say at the moment. I can say, looking at the models here, I'll pull it up here on my screen. Let's have a look. I know that the GFS in particular has a system getting down into the 970s. However, it drastically weakens it before making landfall near Bangladesh and the Myanmar border.
Right. I'll be able to show all the GFS shortly, so why don't you take us through the other models?
Yep, I'll pull up my screen here. Just give me one moment. Alright, so looking at the Euro here, Euro also develops this, but keeps it fairly weak and takes it off towards Myanmar, so that's pretty reasonable, I think. Canadian model here also develops it, takes it into this bay here, which I have no idea what it's called.
The Andaman Sea?
Yes, thank you. But develops it into a weak to moderate tropical storm before making landfall in Myanmar. So that's another one on the development table. Icon here also develops it, but model run doesn't go out as far. We can go to the 12Z run here. We'll see where it goes. Sort of limps up to Bangladesh, so That's another one that's developing it, and NavGem also develops it. So yeah, this is probably going to form at this point. But I'm not sure where people are saying that it's going to go towards Eastern India, because I'm not seeing it at all in these models. Maybe the GFS ensembles have it. Maybe let's have a look at this. Let's see here. So each of these individual numbers here, I should know, are sort of like their own each GFS run, so to speak, I guess you could say. And you can see them taking it off towards the east, really keeping it in the eastern Bay of Bengal. But I guess that threat to eastern India still is there, but I think it's going to probably go towards Myanmar, Nathan.
It's an area that has very low confidence. To be honest, less confidence that it'll even form as to its track, because we've seen these systems before. I mean, well, certainly intensity. The previous system that we had this year, a few weeks ago, how strong did that end up being? It wasn't very strong in the end.
40 mile per hour.
Depression, only a depression.
40 miles an hour, and models said all sorts of things for it.
Yeah, I think that it's personally pretty safe to assume this will form, but it's just a question of where will it go? We don't know. I mean, it can go anywhere from southern Myanmar all the way up to, I'd say, probably Bangladesh. Anywhere within that range, it could go.
Well, let's take a look at my screen then and show what we've got on our imagery here. This is the GFS model. Let's see what's expected. So it forms out of, first of all, you've got this massive area here of stronger winds, sort of like doldrums really, area around the equator. The equator line is somewhere along here. And that is where all of this monsoonal stuff, I assume part of it, or even more than part of it, has been affecting Indonesia, is delivering loads of rainfall, and there's loads of disorganized thunderstorms around here. And from this, you could see systems forming on both sides. There's our one, the Bay of Bengal one, and here's the other one, which is not far from Indonesia actually. So Farhan would be interested. But let's follow the Bay of Bengal one first. We're looking at all of them, and this is what the GFS expects it to form out of there and to go on and affect the Andaman Islands, which are these set of islands here, and then become a hurricane strength storm briefly, well, not more than briefly, but a weak one, and then weaken as it loses momentum up here, and it looks like it was making a turn possibly towards Myanmar at the end. Uncertain times in that 5-day period. Well, it's actually a 7-day period that we're looking at here. Let's see what's on the other side. That's what's on the other side. So first of all, you've got Billy. There's what's left of Billy here. That thing down there. That's looks like it will get eaten up by a front there and move off, be steered off well towards the west there. And behind it, this system that forms, by the looks of things, not too far from the Cocos Keeling Islands, and looks called a GFS, becomes a Category 1 and gradually moves down there. And then we've got maybe another system behind it as well. That's in the 7-day period. As for Gombe and its remnants, not directly, but some of its energy looks like it will become another tropical cyclone in the same area as Gombe is right now in the Mozambique Channel. In 5 days, that could happen, and that could be another threat either to Mozambique along the coast here, or Madagascar, which is what the GFS currently has a significant landfall for. Oh dear. Let's hope that doesn't happen.
I will note, Nathan, this Indian Ocean tropical cyclone that you're talking about, the one that's going to develop near Indonesia, the Euro keeps this thing for the next 5 days or so extremely weak, but once it gets towards the western Indian Ocean, towards near Madagascar, towards Reunion and stuff, then it begins to intensify. So certainly,
is it going that
long
way?
range? Yeah, Euro has it down into the high 960s. As it gets towards Rodrigues. From this,
actually, hold on. Yeah, go on.
So yeah, I mean, just a long-range signal. Very uncertain forecast, but I wouldn't bet on this happening at all. But certainly something that bears watching. This is what we got to do, These things
GFS
form
is
and they
going.
can track for a while.
GFS is going through an early recurve. I can see that happening already there. So GFS isn't convinced by that, but what you've seen on the Euro, interesting times. Just looking towards the Western Pacific. Anything to come there? No, that's good. Looking down towards the South Pacific, can still get some significant tropical cyclone activity this late in the season. But at the moment, it looks like not much is going to come out of anything soon. And that's an interesting feature, although it's not tropical. Very strong. That's current right now. That looks interesting. And the good old Atlantic, nothing, you'll be pleased to know. Although there are a couple of thunderstorm warnings out right now. Alright, we must push on and get some more specifics about the earthquake that recently happened in Iran. I believe Sam has got the information. Go ahead.
Yeah, so USGS has basically rated its magnitude at 5.8, although estimates vary from 5.8, I believe, at the low end to 6.0 or to 6.1. So it's a pretty big earthquake. This region experienced a couple magnitude 6s last year that killed dozens of people, and this is on almost the same location. So I'm really concerned that people will be affected by this pretty severely. And the USGS's pager, which basically estimates the fatalities and economic losses, is like, well, the economic losses might not be high. The fatalities estimate is not great.
That's not good to hear. We'll be able to get the shake map on screen in just a jiffy at my end. And we'll be able to roll that just to show you where we're talking about exactly. It's in the southern area of Iran. So another earthquake. Things seem to have really woken up now after some period of quiet, Sam.
That is true.
There is the location of the Iran earthquake there. And this occurred at 36 minutes past, no, earlier than that, 15 minutes past the hour. You can see at the top there. So that was 45 minutes ago. And the closest city there, at least on the map, is Bastak. So a few yellow zones there. With the
Something to note, even though the shaking may not be as intense as it may be in other stronger earthquakes, this region of the world has poorly developed structures that are far more vulnerable to shaking.
Yes, indeed. But we are literally out of time at this point. More information and updates can be found on our earthquake channel, which Sam is effectively head of, which I'm sure you're pleased about. He's doing a good job with us here. You've not been with us for very long, have you?
No, I have not.
But it's nice to have Sam with us. And of course, you can join Force 13 on its many outlets. You can find us, of course, on our YouTube channel. You can send us or subscribe to us or send us messages or whatever. And you can also join us on our other social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter. And of course, join our Discord server, discord.gg/Force13, to communicate with many people. There's even a geophysics room in there as well, for those who are interested in the earthquakes. And of course, our earthquakes channel, Force 13 Earthquakes. There's been a lot going on in the world in the last 2 weeks, most of it in the last few days. Hopefully we're back soon with WeatherBeat. I think we're changing to Thursdays. And just a note there, will the Bay of Bengal system form? 83% of you said yes. We'll have updates on that if necessary on the Force 13 main channel. We'll see you again soon.